Hi, it's Ken Stone. Welcome to this week's live stream. It's wonderful to be with you. The focus this week, we're going to start exploring this question around how to integrate the experience of being an empath. The question really is, how can an empath take full advantage of all the gifts that are available to the empath without also shouldering the burdens? And as is so often in our spiritual journey, it's the process of attending to the things that we're integrating that is the experience of the burden that opens the doorway to the gift. And I'm interested in exploring that with you around this question of being an empath and being able to sit in your own energy and so on. It came out of a question that a member of the community asked recently. I'm going to just read it here so it's on the record at the beginning so I don't lose track of this. She said, I wonder how you manage not to feel everything when you are not in transmission. Maybe you could talk about it sometime to teach us empaths so we can get a break. So I'm excited to answer that question, excited to have this opportunity to connect with you. And once I've explored this a little bit, and as I said earlier today in my From My Heart newsletter, and if you're not currently subscribe to that, you'll find a link in the description below the video. If you don't see that link in the description, you'll see a link to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you'll find it on the YouTube description. There's a link where you can add your name and email address and subscribe to the newsletter for free. John's checking in. Wonderful to hear from you, John. Glad you're here. Appreciate the feedback as well. And Sue is checking in as well. Wonderful to be with both of you and everyone else who's tuning in. Julie is here as well. Great to see you all checking in. Thanks for saying hi. And anyone else who'd like to say hi, whether you're participating in the live stream or whether you're watching a replay, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I'm going to see if I can't focus a little bit so I can begin sort of unpacking this theme a little bit. So I'm going to do my best not to pay attention. There's Judy saying hi over in the comments as well. I'm going to see if I can't put my blinders on a little bit and just focus on the topic at hand. As I was saying in the newsletter earlier today, what I said is that probably this is a topic that we're going to need to explore over the course of a couple of weeks together, because it is a big topic. And I'm happy to address it at depth with you and really go through some of the, I don't even know that I would call them practices, but some of the exercises to introduce some of the tools that I have facilitated and taught to others in paid programs over the years. And I'm happy to share them with you as well here in this series. And we'll get to at least one of them today. I can promise you that. I don't know how many of them we'll get to, but also I'm going to break out my sketch pad. And so there's going to be some drawings. Sue, I know you're excited about that. Maybe everyone is. So we'll have an opportunity to go exploring around the beauty of my incredible sketches here in just a few minutes. So I want to finish talking about the agenda for our time together. So I'm going to begin exploring this topic with you. We'll explore at some depth. I'll try to answer any questions that are coming up through the live stream. And then, of course, if you're watching on the replay, I'll respond to those questions as well. I haven't been the most timely at responding to comments lately. I'll try to do better. My apologies. And then we're going to do some meditating together. We'll do divine connecting breath, and then we'll drop into transmission together. Transmission is one of the ways that I refer to the gifts that the divine expresses through me. And one of the things that happens in transmission is that, I believe this is what happens, at least one of the things, is that the divine in you is enlivened by the divine in me. But I'm not sending you energy. I'm not buzzing things through the airwaves or anything like that. It's really about divine presence within me, enlivening divine presence in you. And there's a reason why it's important to talk about that before we start talking about the empath thing, because really, the empath's gift, this is how I would describe it, is the ability to be completely present. And when an empath is integrated, that presence is opening, that ability to be present is opening up within the empath the way I would language that is to say an empath has an extraordinary ability to become aware of the aspect of that individual, of the empath, that is expressing as fill in the blank, all these other people or this individual. Whereas an unintegrated empath has a very difficult time differentiating between all the stuff that's going on out there and themselves. They don't have a sense of themselves. And this comes out of a couple of different things from my perspective. I'm sure there are lots of different reasons for it, and I'd love to engage in dialogue and conversation with you. Jerry's checking in. Hi, Jerry. Great to see you. Yanya's checking in. Wonderful to be with you as well, Yanya. Okay, so let's just to cover the basics again, I'm going to talk about this journey of the empath. We're going to talk about some strategies. We're going to explore that a little bit. Then we're going to do some meditating together. We're going to meditate, and we'll do that with Divine Connecting Breath. It's a guided meditation. If this is your first time, if you've never experienced that, I'll clearly say, now let's gather in our circle energetically, come together, do a little bit of breathing, and then we'll open into that meditation. And then we'll open into transmission. And one of the things that I do when I formally begin a transmission is I say the words, let's begin. And when I say let's begin, that's when I consciously become aware of the aspects of me that are representing or expressing themselves as all of you, for example, in this circle, in this experience here, where we're live streaming over YouTube. We're live streaming out on Facebook on my professional page as well. I thought it was time to start contributing some positive vibes to the Facebook space for those that are still active on the Facebook platform, as well as on Twitter. So putting out this positive energy in those spaces as well. And I'm able to respond to, I think, everyone on all three platforms if you have questions and so on during the live stream. And then, as I say, I'm committed to following up and responding. Okay, so there's our agenda. Let's dive in, shall we? Okay, so I'm talking about the integration and the integration, blah, blah, blah. Let me try that again. Language isn't quite there for me right now. The integrated expression of an empath and an unintegrated expression of an empath. And what do I mean when I say integrated? What I mean is an integrated empath is one who has done work, conscious spiritual work, focused on supporting the experience of their own integration. And this is sort of an illusory dynamic, and I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes. I know we're focused on this question here. So let me just say this. We can explore this in another video or in another circle sometime if you're interested in exploring this. But we're actually all already fully integrated. That's who we really are. And I don't mean who we really are as some random concept of, that's possible. I mean, right here, right now, whoever you are, wherever you are in your life, whatever's going on in your world, whatever's going on in the world at large. And not just the people who are watching and participating in this. Presumably we're focused in a particular way. And I'm not trying to make us special. I'm just trying to acknowledge, right? We're talking about spirituality. You're taking time to watch the video. Obviously, it's important to you. But even for people who aren't focused on spirituality, they're fully integrated too. But because of this beautiful gift that God has given us, which we could call the illusion of separation, I think that's one common way it's referred to. Because of the illusion of separation, we have this experience as other than integrated. So we go through this process of integration. Okay, enough of the rabbit hole. Let's get back to the point. In the integrated experience and expression as an empath, that individual now is able to differentiate between their own experience of divine presence, let's say, and divine presence beyond their immediate dynamic. So the integrated individual is able to both be in the experience of a dualistic perspective, that is to say, a perspective that has as its origin separation, I'm here in Fort Collins, Colorado, as I'm doing this video, and you're wherever you are in the world on the other side of the camera from my perspective. But for you, I'm on the other side of the screen or whatever it is that you're watching right now. And that would be a dualistic perspective. A non-dualistic perspective would be we're all one. So an empath who hasn't yet integrated is having all these inputs streaming in, all this awareness and all this noise. And for some empaths, it actually shows up as noise. I mean, they might actually hear crinkling or the sound of emotion or people's thoughts. I mean, there's just all these different expressions. I'm not going to even try to offer a comprehensive list of them. I think it's easy for you to fill in the blank about the ways that people might become aware of other people's energy, emotion, and so on. And in an undifferentiated or in an unintegrated dynamic, all of that is just streaming in all at once. I mean, can you imagine if, and some of you aren't having to imagine, but maybe some of you are scratching your head and you're thinking, well, wait a second, what would that be like? So just imagine for a moment and maybe close your eyes if you want to see if you can get here in your mind's eye and your imagination. Imagine for a moment that when you open your eyes in the morning, what's coming in is not the room where you went to sleep or the dwelling or the space where you fell asleep, but just a bunch of information that has no context to it at all. In other words, a process that is, or a function, let's say, of your mind, which is referred to as the reticular activating system, isn't sorting for the things that are familiar and make sense. It's not sorting out, I don't know what the actual percentage is, but and maybe I should have looked this up before this video so I could be using accurate numbers. But I would guess, it's a reasonable guess, that well in excess of 90% of the visual inputs that are coming in actually out here, we are unaware of as human beings. We don't even perceive them because our minds are sorting for things that are familiar. Now, put that in the context of energy, and I'm sure you've heard people talk about how energy is everything, and let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's just accept that for a minute. Now, imagine all this energy, not just energy in the form of light, but energy in the form of emotions and thoughts and other people is flooding in. For an unintegrated empath, potentially, right, they're having this overwhelming experience of all these things flooding in all the time. It's as if they can't get quiet space for themselves. And so one of the ways that empaths respond to this, and this dynamic can show up, I suppose, at lots of different ages, but for empaths where it shows up in the younger years, some people respond to this just by completely withdrawing. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it. I mean, can you imagine? And maybe you can remember this experience in your own life, or there's a loved one, a member of your family, or someone you've met, or your beloved perhaps, who has had this experience and shared about it with you. Can you imagine what that would be like and why it would be so important to isolate, to maybe go out in nature, to sort of become focused on kind of a hermetic way of living, just this being a hermit, isolating away from other people to just find a sense of peace? There's another way, and we're going to talk about that. Another common response for empaths is to start utilizing the empathic awareness as a strategy for succeeding or surviving in life. And I'm going to illustrate this with a drawing here in just a moment. Let me see if I can remember to say hi to folks here for just a minute. Sue is checking in. She says, I understand a little bit more about transmission right now. We talked about that in our last deep dive. I'm happy to explore more. Sky is here. Great to see you, Sky. John Paduchek is checking in on, I think, John, are you on Twitter? Is that true? So exciting. Hello to John on Twitter and everyone else on Twitter, if there is anyone else watching on Twitter. Okay, so another strategy is to handle that information and begin parsing it as a way of succeeding. And so, for example, an empath might respond to these inputs and realize, um, and I'm just going to sort of create a narrative here. I'm not trying to project this. I'm not trying to say this is true in every case. I just want to illustrate this for people that are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, or if you're wondering, hey, is he talking about my experience? I just want to compare notes with, what Ken's talking about here. So in some cases, what empaths will do is they'll actually start utilizing this awareness as a way of understanding, is this safe space for me? Did I just say that right? Is this space safe for me? I think I did say it right. Jeez. Oh, is it safe for me? Is it okay for me to participate in this family gathering? Is it okay for me to enter this social dynamic? Sometimes empaths can be highly sensitive or be referred to that way. Maybe every empath in some way is considered highly sensitive. Again, I don't know. I'm not trying to be the expert on what the empathic experience here. I want to share tools and strategies for integrating that. So if you're an empath, you can become an integrated empath and be able to differentiate between your own experiences and other people's, and then choose when you open up to that, or if you ever want to open up to that. Sort of the answer to the question that came in: how do you not go around feeling everyone's stuff all the time? I can answer that for you very straightforwardly. The reason I can go through my life doing that is that I have done enough integration work that I make a conscious choice for when I open up to that energetic dynamic. And rather than running that awareness all the time, I am sitting in, or this is my focus at least. Whether I succeed in this is another question, but I am focused on sitting in the experience of divine presence within me. And I'm going to show this to you. I'll illustrate this in just a moment. Not about me in particular. We all have this available to us. Okay, so let's come back to this strategy. It's almost like a radar. The empath, the unintegrated empath, might use this awareness of how other people are feeling emotionally as a strategy for success or survival very early on in life. But it creates a burden, an obligation. One of the ways to articulate that burden is to say that if you think that you have to understand where everyone else is coming from and how they're feeling to figure out if you're safe, you're never off the hook. You're never safe unless you understand what everyone else is feeling. And even then, that might not lead to safety, right? Because if other people are really unhappy and you get into this sort of spiritual codependent dynamic where you think, oh, I'm responsible for making them happy, and then you go through life and begin to realize, well, actually, there's nothing I can do to make other people happy. And eventually you turn inward. Could be sharing a little bit from my own autobiography here, but I suspect there are plenty of empaths who have had this experience as well. Okay, I just want to pause for a moment because I want to make sure that I'm organizing and sharing in a way that is somewhat easy to follow. I guess the thing to do is to draw some pictures here. John is saying, I see it as my spidey sense. Yeah, exactly. Lots of people refer to it that way, right? That sense of what's happening out in the world. But here's the thing. I mean, these are my own perspectives. Obviously, it's my own bias. I'm have the limitation of my own perceptual view, et cetera, all the sort of standard disclaimers. But there's a little, it's not just an unintegrated experience. It's also an experience, if you're open to what's going on around you, where it's like a boundary challenge. It's a way of describing, and the boundary can go both ways. It's not just with other people, but it's also with yourself. That is to say, where is it appropriate to be? I don't want to use the word appropriate. What is the most resonant path for engaging in the world? And I think there are a lot of people who are confused about this. I can remember years ago, there was a woman who wanted to introduce another spiritual messenger, a healer, to me, and she brought him up to Fort Collins. I think we went out to lunch, and he said to me, very proudly, all you have to do is say somebody's name and I can tell you whatever you want to know about them. I can tell you how they're feeling, what's going on, and blah, blah, blah. And privately, I was mortified. Because it's a way of saying I don't respect the autonomy, the sovereignty of people out in the world. For me, this was an expression of an unintegrated empath, someone who doesn't understand how to not engage in that way, or doesn't understand there's not enough work around understanding the developmental journey of recognizing people's own autonomy and their choice about whether or not they would be open to interacting with an individual in that way. All right, just some commentary from me. Maybe it's helpful, maybe not. Okay, let me see if I can draw some pictures here. There are a couple things I want to show you. I don't think I've ever actually illustrated these before, and I want to show them to you so that we can talk about one of the strategies. And we're actually going to do this. We'll workshop this here in a minute. A strategy for how to begin responding to this dynamic where one is open. So the first thing I want to do is I want to illustrate for you. Oh, good. This is going to work. I want to illustrate for you what one way of looking at an integrated individual is. Now, mind you, this is based on how I perceive things, and I'm inviting you to share my perception with me. So here's this individual. This person is, I guess they're winking at us. And, oh, I've drawn it on the wrong scale though. Let me do this. Okay. They're still kind of winking. Okay. So the person who is integrated is having this experience, this awareness of divine resonance. And I've drawn it before like this. If they're integrated, they're having this kind of experience of resonance. And it's not resonance that is originating from their mind. It's not resonance that is originating from their thinking. It's resonance that is originating from their being. That is to say, it's originating in the being presence of their embodied hips. Okay, so another way that I want to talk about this is that in that deeply embodied space, is this awareness of, it's like a fountain of divine presence. I don't think I've ever drawn a fountain. Maybe I should have practiced this. And this fountain is shooting up through the top of the head, and then all of this divine grace is showering down on this individual. No wonder they're smiling, right? Because all of this divine grace, the exclusive focus of this is on the individual, right? It's all on them. Whoop. It's all coming back down on them. Whatever that means. Let's not even get into what that means right now. Let's just say that's true. So let's contrast this with someone who is an empath, and they're utilizing this energy in a very different way. It's like they've got this steel plate bolted on the top of their head, and this fountain is shooting out this way. So all that energy is going out like radar into other parts of the world or their life. I'm not very good with drawing, as has been established, but let's just say there's 360 degrees of this radar. So this energy is being sprayed out, and the empath has figured out how to receive the hits, the pings off this radar system. So if someone over here is unhappy, that information returns back to them, and then they can figure out what to do. Oh, here's an unhappy person. Maybe I'm going to dance a jig. I don't know how to draw a picture about dancing a jig, but I mean, some empaths do that, right? Some empaths get into a dynamic where they're trying to turn the frown upside down, so to speak. So here's the John, you're very nice to say that it makes so much sense. I'm having an experience of laughing at myself and my drawing. I'm telling you, this is how I've seen it for years. I've just never been able to illustrate it like this before. And John DeMoss is saying, nailed it, Ken, speaking as a one-time poster child. Okay, hallelujah. Thanks for the reinforcement. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to draw this again, and we're just going to draw it in a way that I hope is a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so here's the steel plate, this adaptive steel plate, and now here's all this. Now, here's the thing. The empath, the unintegrated empath, is confused about, here's their confusion with question marks. They're confused. They think the purpose of this divine grace, this energy, has to do with their survival or navigating life or their success, but they experience it vis-a-vis, I forgot to turn off my speaker there, sorry. They experience it vis-a-vis other people. So their experience of divine presence is happening only indirectly. Even though this fountain has as its origin within them, they're sending it out into the world to receive back as this gift, but which many empaths, I think, feel is a burden. And so they might learn how to manage this or manipulate this, but many times this will actually lead to an experience of exhaustion. And I don't know how to draw a picture of somebody's exhausted, but let's just say they're exhausted. Maybe this is an exhausted face. Grant me that, if you will, please. Give me some grace here for the drawing. So step number one for dealing with this, or to changing our perspective as empaths, is, here's this energy spraying out. We're gonna put a little bumper in place. And in truth, this stuff sprays all over the place. So I don't know what the curve of this bumper is. It doesn't matter. It's energetic. It's like this big, and it's actually a ring, but I'm just gonna represent two slices of the ring. This is a really special drawing. Okay, two slices of the ring, but you understand the ring is actually a circle like this, right? This is part of it. This is part of it. And what we're going to do then is we're going to redirect all of this back to you, the empath, so that you are having an experience of this divine shower, this divine presence. And the thing is, all this actually makes me cry. All of the stuff that comes from divine presence is beyond description amazing. It's all highly resonant. How we respond to it, what it stirs up within us, well, that's a whole different story. But the raw feed of this is just beyond imagination. Now, there are a couple of caveats before we do this, and I'm actually going to do this with you energetically, but I think I'm done with my drawing for now. I'm going to come back into the full screen. We can come back to this here in a minute. That's good. John Paduchek says he's laughing with me. Thank you, John, for laughing with me. Here's the thing. Before we do this, I want to be clear. Just as with any unintegrated experience, it can become a very comfortable experience. It can become the standard way of living your life. Just like the individual I made reference to, he had developed an identity for himself and apparently with other people wherein he could provide information if you just mentioned someone's name. Maybe you have developed an identity around this sense of being aware of what other people are feeling. The person who asked the question was saying, how can I do this so I can have some relief? Obviously, they're at a place now where they're ready to stop doing this, right? Stop being aware of other people's energy, emotions, and so on, and just be with themselves. And if you're not, it's okay. There's no problem. I don't mean it in some condescending way, like, oh, they're there, you poor ignorant, whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you're ready, that's great. And if you're not, I really encourage you to be honest about it. I mean, how will I ever know? And no one else is going to know on this either. We're just sitting together virtually. And I don't even want to have accountability with you. It's your journey. There's nothing to be accountable for. If you're ready to do this, Awesome possum. It'll be wonderful. I think something really extraordinary can happen for you. And this first step is we're going to put this bumper in place. And then the second step is we can actually get rid of the plate if you want. And of course, you can rebuild all these things. You can do them over again. It's not like we're going to get rid of this stuff forever. It's not really how separation works. You integrate what you're ready to integrate, and the stuff you're not yet ready to integrate, you don't. And you do it your way. There's nothing I could say that would change it, and it's not about me either. There's nothing anyone could say to you that would change the course of your integration journey. And that's exactly as it should be. Again, it's not, you know, some limitation on your part or my part that I'm not ready to integrate whatever I'm not ready to integrate. It's we all do it when we're ready. So I would just encourage you to check in, and we're not going to do this outside I can't do it outside the context of a deeper transmission with you. And I don't want to. Maybe I could, but I certainly don't want to. So we'll do that once we get into transmission together, and we'll do it very briefly at the beginning of the transmission. And then we'll drop, I think, probably into silence together. And one of the things you may be thinking about or wondering is, well, what happens in transmission, Ken? I mean, what does that mean? And why do you do that every week? Why do you keep doing this with us? And the reason for that is that what happens is it's very difficult for me to actually describe what happens. It's not so difficult for other people that experience it, or it is very difficult for other people that experience it. But let's just put this header on it. It's an experience of enlivening the divine within you. Now, some people have said that creates a healing dynamic or a dynamic of smoothing out, or fill in the blank. I don't want to try to like feed you information about what it is that's happening there. I really encourage you to be open to it for yourself. The reason why I keep offering it as part of our time together on Wednesdays is because I really believe that it is among the most important things that I could share with you. It is one aspect of how the divine expresses through me. It's what I refer to as my gifts, but they're not really mine. They are the divine expression as me. And I've done a lot of developmental work with them, but I have not developed them. I have not created them. They are just the raw expression. And it's such an honor to walk with you and to share them with you. And so that's why I do this on a regular basis. And I'm really in the process of just even over the last couple of years, really changing the way I interact with our community and how I make the gifts that God expresses through me available. And I'll have more to share with you about that in the coming weeks. But for now, I just wanted to explain those few things. So for example, when I talk about the integration necessary to have an integrated experience as an empath, one of the things that I believe is taking place when we're in transmission together is that those aspects of you that are unintegrated, that are showing up for attention right now, are coming home. They're integrating to be part of you. And the role that you can play in that process, it's the role you do play, by the way, is to feel whatever's coming up. So this is a challenging invitation, especially for an unintegrated empath, right? If that happens to be you, because if you're unintegrated, you've been feeling everyone else's stuff, and probably that's exhausting. I mean, who could blame you for being exhausted with that? But as part of these exercises that I'm going to share with you, this one today, we're going to drop the bumper in place and then be in the experience of your own energy. Part of that is the integration of all that you are. And with that comes your stuff, comes not just the label, the unintegrated empath, but those aspects that have been held by your separate self that are ready to integrate now. And let's just remind ourselves, the separate self, it's not actually real. It's not that there's a whole self and a separate self. There's only one self, and it's the whole self. But in separation, or through the lens of separation, we have this experience of being separate from ourselves, separate from God, separate from one another. And from that perspective, right, there's the question of whose feelings are these? Where are they coming from? What's mine and what's not mine? And so there's this process of sort of differentiating, integrating, and then eventually there's enough integration that you can choose to become aware of other people's experiences, presumably in concert with their permission to do so, so that actually some aspect of the divine expression as you might show up if you're so inclined. All right. It's a new thing for me, even though I've been doing the YouTube channel now for almost a year. It's still kind of new for me to be teaching on camera in this way. And for some reason on YouTube, I think I need to leave my eyes open and do things that are interesting or whatever. But in reality, when I teach, and I've been teaching now for a lot of years, when I teach, my eyes are closed. I don't even open my eyes. And I certainly don't open my eyes once we go into transmission together. And so I want to just close my eyes before we meditate, before we go into transmission, and see if there's anything else to focus on today. And then I'll check in on comments and see if there are any questions. Because really, I think once we drop in and start meditating and then do this exercise, once we're in transmission and then do this exercise, I really feel like the opportunity, the invitation is to sink in and to become more and more comfortable with just being with ourselves. And it's so beautiful to be able to do that in a virtual circle. I suppose it could be a bit of a paradox too. One of the things I didn't say at the beginning, and I'll try to remember to say this at the beginning more frequently. I say a lot in paid programs, but here we're all just showing up, right? And so maybe this is your first time. It's so important to stay with your own energy. It's sort of a funny comment to make when we're talking about empaths who have a hard time maybe understanding that. But I think maybe you're beginning to understand why. One of the reasons, though, is that the divine is already fully expressed in everyone. Once, as an empath, you start having this experience, the plate's gone, and that fountain is shooting up, and all this beautiful divine resonance is just sinking in on every level of your being. You begin to realize, oh my goodness, there's this whole other dimensional part of reality, of living life that I've been missing out on. And then at some point it dawns, oh my goodness, this is true for everyone. And it's not your job to go make it happen for them. Everyone is on their own journey, right? You don't have to go out and be that spiritual codependent. Oh, you're not feeling well. I know that because I'm still aware and I want to do something to support you. In the end, none of us can do anything. It is the enlivenment of the divine, only the divine can open that sense of sustaining resonance, however we interpret it. Okay, those are footnotes. Let me see if there's anything else by way of headlines for us to explore today, or for me to say, for me to share, give voice to. You know, I feel like this is a great place to start. And yeah, I want to check in on questions or comments here and see if I can address any of those before we start meditating together. The other thing I want to say is that I think it's really important to remind ourselves that even though the separate self has this desire, I'll just say this, my separate self has this desire. Where's the light switch on the wall? I'm going to flip the switch. Everything's going to be perfect. My life's going to be the way I want it. Shazam, it's all great. If that resonates with you, I understand if it resonates with you. And the thing I want to say is, as understandable as that perspective is, it's not really how it unfolds. And if anyone's saying, yeah, but you don't want to limit things, okay, I don't want to limit things, but I also want to be realistic. I want to set expectations in a place that make it easy for us to let go of our expectations rather than hanging on to them so much that they limit our experience of the unknown, our experience of moving closer to ourselves, closer to the interior of divine presence. So, yeah, so the thing I want to say is that this process of integrating, especially as an empath, but for anyone, it is such a beautiful journey. It's such a beautiful process. And as much as possible, if you can be patient with yourself and patient with what unfolds and really enjoy the process, because it's not like there's some destination, all of a sudden you're certified, you're an integrated empath, and now you've arrived. It's not really how it works, right? You just now you're having a more integrated experience of yourself, and you begin realizing, oh, that stuff that I felt all the time when I was in this group or just in the world, that really wasn't me. But maybe it was more comfortable for me to be aware of all those other people's things instead of my own stuff. Because now that I'm with me, here I've got this stuff to deal with. And what do I do with that? And then the answer comes up for how to address those things and so on and so forth. My point is be patient with what unfolds. And whatever gets shared in the circle, whatever you see in other people's comments, please just honor your own experience. Whatever it is perfect. It's exactly what's needed for you. Okay, before I answer um, any questions, and I see a couple coming up, I want to put my legs up in the air because when I'm in transmission, I have my feet off the ground. I know it's not what people think they're supposed to do, but it's how I am most comfortable. So that's how I do it. Okay, Gary, let's see. Gary's expressing love and appreciation. That's beautiful. Ian is saying, hi, great to be with you, Ian. Thanks for being here. And Sue is asking, what kind of energy is the buffer made up of? What a great question, Sue. Sue, let's call it a concrete buffer. But maybe you want to do something even more bulletproof that you can't bore your way through. You can make it be whatever you'd like it to be. If you would like to, in your mind's eye, go put it on a chunk of clay on a platter and fire it up. It's a big buffer, though. It's not just around your head. It's out here. Oh, my camera isn't. So I'm 6'5", so my wingspan, my arms go way out, way beyond the scope of the camera. Anyway, probably about my height. So let's say 1 meter to 2 meters out is where this buffer is going to be. That's where it's going to be. And what energy is it made up of? I've always, when I've taught it or shared this idea in the past, I've always made reference to it as a cement buffer, buffer, but maybe it's steel or something else. The point is something impenetrable for that stream of water that is going out. So it deflects everything, and all the extra spray gets gathered and dropped all over you. So it's just for you. And then maybe next week or in a future week, we'll unscrew the steel cap and take that off. We can go through that process together. Okay, I don't see any other questions. The other thing I'm going to do before we sink in a little bit more is I'm going to get a drink of water. And it reminds me, I try to say this as well. Please stay hydrated. It's you may think, look, you're the one who's doing all the talking, Ken, and you're doing this, and I don't know what I'm doing, but we're all doing a lot of work here. There's a lot going on, and staying well hydrated is important. So I'm going to mute the line just so you don't have to hear me gulping water, but you'll be able to see what I'm doing, so you'll know I haven't left you. Joseph has a comment I'll come to in just a moment. I'm going to mute for a moment. There, I muted, but I'm going to mute for a moment, drink some water, and I'll be right with you. Give me just a moment, please. I drink so much water when I'm working. I mean, whew, it's unbelievable. So if that's true for you, if you're like, wow, and some people have said over the years, I am so hungry after I'm in session with you. If you can, honor what your body's asking for, but definitely stay well hydrated. It's important for me to remind myself, and I'm going to remind you too. Okay, let's see what Joseph is saying. I am working on my own integration a lot for many years, see no progress, seems never ending. Anyway, I could see that I am on the right track. Yeah. Okay, Joseph, I'm just going to try to interpret the question you're asking here, and if I'm on the wrong page, help me out and follow up if you would, please. I really welcome that. I think what you're asking me is, how do I know I'm on the right track with regard to my integration? So, yeah, and if that's true, that's the question I'm going to start answering. But if you have a different idea or want to offer clarification, jump in. Hopefully, it'll show up on the screen quickly and stop me from answering the wrong question. Um, when something is integrated, it sustains. So let's talk about something that could be integrated. Um, let's say um, on the one hand, so here's an idea, right? An idea might be we're all undistorted expressions and extensions of the divine. That's my language. Some people would say we're all children of God. There are lots of different ways to say this. Okay. There's the idea. Now, there might be a feeling that we're going to have that once that idea is embodied a little bit more, we can actually begin having that feeling. And that feeling might feel like a sense of calm, but it's not integrated until that sense of calm sustains. And at that point, it's not a thought or a feeling, it's a being, it's a way of being. Um, Oh, John Paduchek is saying yes, because we all feel we're on the right track, but if it's an illusion, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, John. So, Joseph, here's the thing. You know something is integrated when it sustains, but that might be a very discouraging perspective because you might think, well, geez, what is sustaining for me other than this experience of suffering? And so I want to shift the perspective a little bit. This is one of the reasons why I've done so much exploring, talking, facilitating around soul embodiment. Because soul embodiment is not about a process of thinking, even though we're shifting from, let's say, a primarily disembodied perspective at the top of our head or a thinking perspective within our head, or we're embodied in our chest and our hearts and are in more of a feeling or control perspective. Eventually we come into the hips, but getting there isn't, it's not a process of thinking our way there, nor are we going through a checklist and saying, okay, now this is done, so I must be more integrated, I must be more embodied. It's a practice. I want to suggest it's a spiritual practice that we're engaged in that supports integration. The integration is the byproduct of this. The immediate impact is we're disengaging with a thinking perspective without shifting to a disembodied perspective that is often associated with mindfulness. Namely, I am not the thoughts I'm having, I'm not the feelings I'm having. I am the silent observer out here. The challenge with that is that if I'm not this and I'm not the thoughts, what am I? I'm this thing over here, but I'm over here having this experience in my life, right? And so at some point, we're become disidentified, right? In the same way that an empath is disidentified with all of the stream of information that comes in for them. But eventually, and then they differentiate, but then they become embodied, integrated. And in the integration, all of this input is available again, but maybe by choice. Or from an embodied or integrated perspective, it's I am not the thoughts or feelings that I'm having, but what am I? Right. So now I am this being experience, which is this more embodied in the hips perspective, which also then includes my feelings and my thoughts. Remember what I said, when we're in transmission, your part is to feel whatever's coming up. And actually, without disidentifying with those feelings, actually allowing them to consume. We're blending a lot of different things together here, but I'm trying to answer the question fully for you, Joseph. So we disidentify, and then we do this process that ultimately creates a re-identification, but from a more integrated perspective. And now we can say, I am. And at that point, it's not, I am the silent observer. It's I am my being presence. And that includes my thoughts and my feelings. And I am not managed or dominated by a thinking perspective because I am integrated. I'm in a being perspective. It's a big question. I hope I've answered it in a somewhat meaningful way for you, Joseph. I appreciate all the questions that have come in today. I'm actually going to close my eyes for a stretch here as we open into divine connecting breath and move into transmission. And if you're new, even though I've tried to describe this, probably there's no real way for me to describe this for you. So I just invite you to have the experience, to be open to what's happening. But one thing I'll tell you, for all the talking and all the thinking and processing, whatever, we're going to sort of move away from that largely for the next little while. And it's always true, but especially now, please don't do anything else. Don't operate a motor vehicle or heavy equipment. Just be still if you can, and be in a comfortable position. I put my feet up a few minutes ago. Um, some people suggest meditating with feet on the ground. Whatever's best for you. I kind of think God's in us all the time, so why not be comfortable? Whatever's good for you. Some people like to lie down. Some people are trying to avoid going to sleep, which happens often when people are in transmission with me. You're not actually going to sleep, but I wouldn't even worry. Don't even try to resist it. Just be with the experience. Don't try to grok it. Don't try to understand it. Don't worry about getting your arms around it. Just allow it to unfold. For all of this talking, the much more important thing here is what's about to happen, which is going to involve very little talking. And I can't believe I've taken up all this time. We've spent 50 minutes together so far, and now we're just getting to the good stuff. So thank you all for your patience and your perseverance with me. It's not going to be a shorter video. If this is your first time and you're wondering, well, what's going to happen now? I think we're going to get to the good stuff now. Something wonderful is going to happen. And what that means for you is probably something very different than what it means to anyone else. And if you can, be with that fully, setting everything else aside, energetically, emotionally, and otherwise. With your eyes closed, if it's comfortable for you. If it's comfortable, you can breathe in and out through your nostrils, and with your palms towards the sky. It's a wonderful receiving position if it's comfortable for you. But you're receiving here from the divine, not from me. I'm not sending you anything. I'm not activating anything. I'm not doing anything to you. As I said back at the beginning, an integrated empath is one who can easily become more aware of the aspect of them that is expressing as all these beautiful expressions of divinity out in the world. And I'll do that with you here in just a few minutes. You'll know it's happening, or it is, yeah, it's happening when I say let's begin, but we're not there yet. So let's take a deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before in this day, especially all the words that I just used up all that oxygen expressing to you, all that hot air, just let it all go. Maybe it resonated with you, maybe it rubbed you the wrong way. Either way, just let it all go. It wasn't even the warm-up act. It's, by comparison, holds so little value to the invitation to be present with the experience of the divine by whatever name within your being. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since we last gathered. And if this is your first time, maybe back to the first of the year, all the way out to the count of 8. Letting go of those thoughts and feelings that have been dominant in your awareness of late. all the way out to the count of 8. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born, all the way out to the count of 8. Thoughts, feelings, and being, the dominant way of being of late. Release that as well. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul, all the way out to the count of 8. And just releasing yourself into the unknown divine, the arms of the divine. I say unknown because releasing yourself into the God you know comes with it certain promises, certain expectations, certain predictability, certain patterns. But the unknown divine is unknown. And it's a wonderful way of releasing those points of familiarity and opening up to a more complete experience of the divine within you, however that unfolds. I know we're together virtually here, and I know this is coming to you through some video play device. That's what I'm trying to say. And you might want to open your eyes at some point. And I'm just going to keep mine closed. And I'm going to invite you to do the same. But of course, however you do this is completely up to you. The first thing we're going to do, or the next thing we're going to do, is to meditate a little bit. And I'm going to guide you through a process. And when I'm referring to things visually, I'm really inviting you to see them intuitively or in your mind's eye or in your imagination. And if visualizing things isn't your deal or it's difficult to do, don't worry about visualizing. In fact, you may even have an experience of my voice just disappearing or it just fades away. Perfect. The stuff I'm saying is not important. The stuff I'm saying is there to support whatever part of you is maybe comforted or needing or helped by words. But the experience that we're opening to here is not one that requires words or that even has language as part of its experience. which is one of the reasons it might be difficult to reflect on this experience or share it with words with others. And that's okay. With your eyes closed, then, in your mind's eye, in your imagination, see the cue of breath in front of your face. You breathe in one of the units, and another joins the end of the cue, the back of the cue. The breath in front of your face, it's just for you, and it serves you without any criteria or condition. There's nothing you have to do to be served fully by the breath. It doesn't matter. And then fill in the blank. All the ways that we judge ourselves or others or think we're made different from other people or beliefs, on and on, whatever that stuff is. None of that matters to the breath. And as you look at the cue, you may begin noticing a color infusing itself, like a dropper of watercoloring or food coloring to a pitcher of water, spreading itself throughout the cue of its own accord. If you're picking the color, maybe pick something not normally present in the body except for the eyes. And with your next breath, be with the breath from the perspective of the color as you breathe in through the nostrils, up towards the crown, and then down into the lungs. Staying for a while in the lungs as you move time forward very gently. And just notice that color, that beautiful illustration of the pathway of the breath. It lines the interior of the lungs and then it migrates through into the bloodstream and then eventually into every cell in the body. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. When you're ready, shift your perspective from inside the lungs to outside and above the body, and perhaps even above the planet, far enough above that you can perceive the whole planet. And with it, the breath of the planet. And notice the breath of the planet, it serves you and your cue and your neighbor and your neighbor's neighbor and everyone in your community or your region or on your island or on your continent or in the part of the ocean where you are or in the hemisphere that you're in. And truly, the breath of the planet, it serves every single person on the planet. Everyone, no matter what their beliefs are and what they've done or what's been done to them, it serves them without any condition or criteria. And we could say so too, then, with each breath that you take, you are connected to each and every person by your breath. It's never the most popular idea because we can all think of, oh, wait, I don't want to be connected to that person, or that person, they don't act the way I would want someone to act. I don't want their stuff on me. The breath isn't carrying that. But even now, in the middle of this pandemic, the breath becomes, it seems, a liability, the way the virus spreads. Still, the breath it serves, The breath itself, its essence, it serves each and every person. I just invite you to sink into that experience, that awareness of that connection. It's a connection that doesn't bring you any of their stuff, doesn't bring the virus or any other stuff to you, doesn't bring your stuff to anyone else. It's just one way we're all connected. It's one way that we can experience easily that we're all connected. And notice the breath of the planet doesn't just serve people, it serves everything: animal, insects, rocks, dirt, trees, water, fish, everything. We could say with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything above, upon, and within the planet itself. Indeed, you may even have an experience of breathing by and for and of the planet. Sometimes that can feel like a glowing, like when you breathe in, the whole body starts to resonate, glow, as if you were breathing in through your skin. If you're having that experience, it's wonderful. If you're not, it's wonderful. Whatever is unfolding is perfect. And notice how the breath of the planet becomes the breath of the cosmos. For at the very edge of our atmosphere, that breath touches space and in turn every other part of space eventually. And so we can say with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything in the cosmos, including that energy that underwrites everything else, the divine. A light perhaps originating at the far reaches of the cosmos, but notice drawing closer to you with each breath that you draw in. Eventually close enough that you can perceive those twin frequencies that together express as that divine light. Frequency of perfect health and the frequency of the divine itself intertwined such that where one is present, so too the other. No separating one from the other. And not just our understanding of perfect health, physical health, and so on, every iteration known and unknown. Eventually, that light draws close enough, it connects in, perhaps at your nostrils initially, and then instantaneously through every aspect of your being, known and unknown. An invitation extended to the smallest aspects of you. Come return to your natural state of resonance and alignment. The artifacts of dissonance appearing to fall away and gather at that universal drain. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. I'll do the same. Let's begin. So important just to stay with your own energy. Be with your own experience within yourself. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. And if you'd like to, it's your choice to participate in this, and you can just sort of opt in without saying anything. Just, yep, I'm going to do that. I'm going to lower that energetic bumper, the cement or made otherwise bumper that will deflect that beautiful stream of divine expression that perhaps you've been pushing out, shooting out into the world. as a radar mechanism for understanding or experiencing what's happening out there with others for your own safety or success in whatever way you might be using it. I'm going to lower that down very slowly. As it comes down from above, it'll pick up some of those initial streams and then eventually deflect them all. And as it does, it might be a little disorienting. Again, your only job here is to feel whatever's coming up. Feel it fully. I do realize that we're doing something a little more advanced this week, and it might create a little bit of discomfort for some. So if you find yourself thinking, well, geez, I think I've had enough for today, you can just return the universal plug, knowing the transmission will come to a close and leave whenever you like. I'm not trying to encourage that. I just want to acknowledge that discomfort might be there. And if it is for you, and if your response to that is to want to leave the transmission or stop watching, I understand. No worries at all. Please do just make sure you return the universal plug, knowing the transmission will come to a close. Perhaps also you're thinking, well, this has gone on longer than I thought it would today, and I'm just out of time. Either way, universal plug in, transmission will come to a close. You can always come back and restart here and pick up again later if you'd like. Entirely up to you, of course. As for what follows, I'm just going to let go of language here. So, what is most important, the real work here, can proceed, which of course has absolutely nothing to do with the words that I'm speaking, or really even for what I'm aware of. It's all between you and the divine. And if there's something to come back to, or if the discomfort grows beyond what you're comfortable feeling or expressing right now, you can always remind yourself with each breath, you are connected. Everyone, everything, the light, the twin frequencies, connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, known and unknown. The artifacts of dissonance departing the universal drain. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. Hmm. One of the ways that I'm aware of what's going on is through the feedback that I think of as my intuitive guidance system. my body buzzing, tingling, my feet buzz, my hands buzz, my mouth buzzes, all sorts of different aspects of me. And I've learned over time what those mean in the context of transmission. It's another reason why when I open into transmission, I interpret everything that is going on in my awareness and in my intuitive feedback system as related to the transmission that's going on, what's happening in those aspects of me that are expressing as you, all of you. And when I'm not in transmission, then I'm interpreting all of that as related to me. It's the divine's way, or one of the divine's way of communicating with me. And it just simplifies things for me. So, for example, I'm noticing a lot of resonance, which is a function of coming into a state of deeper alignment um, on the energetic, and also on the 3D or the physical, or in the mirror. So if we were in one-on-one session and you had expressed some physical discomforts, I might ask you, well, I'm getting a lot of hand buzz. I'm wondering if that physical discomfort is starting to fade. When it's the group, one of the ways I interpret that, or that it's not just my interpretation, it's sort of how it is, I'm getting an aggregate of everyone who's in the circle. And for me, my experience is of everyone who will ever experience this transmission. I experience it all now. And I've never even tried to delineate or differentiate between this individual or that. One thing I have done is invited people into, sort of air quotes, the center of the circle for individual facilitation or more intense facilitation in the context of the group. It's something that is regularly available in the circles that I facilitate throughout the week and month. And sometimes that accompanies a conversation, meaning if we're on the phone, I might say, if you'd like to be in the center of the circle, you raise your hand. Maybe we have a conversation. One of the things that's so liberating about a group dynamic like this is that, and especially this, is that there's no confusion here, or I can imagine there's no confusion, because I don't know who you are. I can't know who you are. I mean, sure, plenty of people have checked in, but I don't know. Are they all still on the line? And are they everyone who's here? I have no idea. So I'm left to just trust this wonderful, subtle experience. And it's an experience that's true whether I'm with someone one-on-one or in a group. And when I'm not in transmission, then the totality of my intuitive guidance system is available and focused on meaning me personally, my relationship with the divine. And then I just accept all of that as related to me and guidance and so on. For me, it's a very simple way of moving between these kind of two experiences that are available. And when I'm not in transmission, but I'm out in the world, let's say I'm at the grocery store or in a group with other people, although that hasn't happened in a while, but in the grocery store, I'm just with the divine within me. And I know that that's true for everyone, but I'm not trying to witness it or have an experience or an expression of it. I'm just in the interior of my experience. And sometimes I'll get a little nudge, walk down this aisle or turn left here, and it's not the way I was driving or an aisle I needed to go down, but I just do it. I just think, okay, God, whatever's going on here, but I don't even try to figure it out. I don't try to understand it. I just do it. I just do as I'm guided. And that's not a euphemism for not taking personal responsibility for what's going on in my world. You know, um, I drive safely and so on. I don't think there's guidance that's inspiring me to speed or something like that. Yes, officer, but I was guided to go faster. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. And so, underlying all of this, to go back to one of the themes that was sort of moving with us as we began, this being present, being present in the silence, being present in the interior, cultivating that interior dynamic. And then with that, all of these other sort of beautiful gifts begin to unfold. With presence, which is a function of embodied soul, the embodied soul, with that comes a sense of profound connection to self, to the divine, and interestingly enough, an amplification of the intuitive guidance system, that feedback that shows up in the body and so on. Another ancillary benefit is a sense of calm and a realization that this construct of time or needing to hurry things or faster or running out of this or that, these are all artifacts of separation. In wholeness, it's all now. The adrenalized perspective is one of those kind of addictive artifacts of separation. And so it can be for an empath who has had sort of the open feed of all of this going on out in the world, and now the bumper's in place, and it's just here in the interior. The question could arise, well, what's happening out there? Nothing that's more interesting than what's going on in here, at least not from my perspective. Whatever it is, it's not more important. And from my perspective, that's not an idea anymore. It's not a feeling. It's embodied knowledge, meaning it's integrated. It is the thing that's sustaining. But back to Joseph's question from earlier, when we were kind of in our interactive space, it's taken a long, long time to have that as the dominant experience and expression. And any point along the way when I thought, oh, when is that going to happen? Or, you know, earlier today or yesterday when I thought, well, that's not how I'm feeling. It's so easy to get stirred up. And that stirring up is, there it is. It's the separate self. The whole self doesn't get stirred up. The whole self is that pathway to that calm, that peace. If safety is one of the mechanisms that, as an empath, you're deploying that awareness for safety. The true safety, as you know, is not available through that. It's the illusion. It's constantly being pursued, chased, but never arrives, never really sustains or experiences in a meaningful way. But in the interior of divine presence, with the bumper in place here, it's everywhere. It's all there is. There is nothing else. That's the one of the value, one of the impacts of that fountain of divine grace that has as its sole focus you. There's, and if there's an abundance, if the tree has drunk whatever the tree can drink, you don't have to give it to anyone else because they have their unlimited supply. Everyone has an unlimited supply. So you can just observe, be with the beauty of it, feel the experience of your cup runneth overing, be in the experience of the abundance of resonance, like being out in a rainstorm and holding vessels that are overflowing with water, an abundance of divine grace and presence that knows no limit, yet as its sole focus is you, only you. You're not taking from anyone else because they have the same within them. And if they're not aware of it, you can't do it for them. It's just for you. You just get to be in that experience for you. Beautiful. I keep seeing this. It's like an off ramp if you're driving and you see, oh, here it's time to get off the highway. You think, but this highway is so wonderful. And then there's the off ramp. Here it is for us now. In a few moments, I'll open my eyes and interact with any other comments or questions that are coming up. But for now, if you can, still with your eyes closed, I invite you to begin returning that universal plug as I do the same and begin bringing this transmission to a close. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to sit with you, to explore, to share some ideas, and also to share this little experience of this bumper that can be deployed anytime or all the time until that plate can be removed so that you can just be in the fountain of divine grace that is and has as its sole focus you. That grace, which consciously or unconsciously, maybe you've been diverting or putting out in the world as a radar system or deploying in some other way, perhaps a well-intentioned way of offering that grace to others, but there's nothing to transfer to them. Everyone has this for themselves. The divine has it for everyone. Your fountain, no more, no less than anyone else's. Plug all the way in, transmission to a close now. I invite you to begin opening your eyes, and if you want to share, reflect on the experience, certainly welcome to do that in the comments. I'm going to open my eyes here in just a moment, although I do love leaving them closed. I'm all the more aware of what is going on in our circle sometimes when my eyes are closed. A few people checking in here. Sherry, so lovely to hear from you as always. Good to be here. I'm glad you're here. And Susan, peaceful as always. Thank you so much for being here, Susan. And Sue, always wonderful to sit with you. Susan says, enlightening as always too. And Sue, what I needed this afternoon. Beautiful. I'll leave the stream going here for just a few more moments. If there are other questions or reflections coming in. Happy to share those. I just want to thank you for taking time to be present, whether you're an empath or not, whether you're integrated as an empath or not. I think these are wonderful reminders and sort of pathways back to that experience inside. Jerry's checking in, feeling like sunshine in my heart. Beautiful, Jerry. Thanks for sharing. It's such a wonderful reminder, for me at least, of how important it is to come back to the interior. Jerry just said it, feeling, what did he say? Feeling like sunshine in my heart. It's that interior, that opening up to the experience of the divine within. Someone asked me earlier today, what is the divine within? That's a great question. Maybe we can explore it more. It's the ineffable, the nameless one, by whatever name, whatever name. We have people from around the world of, I'm guessing, virtually every religious and spiritual tradition. It's not about the name of the one from my perspective. It's the experience of that, the integration of that experience. And that's a relationship that is so intimate. Only you can speak of it or share what that means for you, or share how God whispers in your ear, or what even that message is. I think it's probably different for all of us. It's such an honor to share time with you and to share what I perceive to be God's expression through me. This thing that God does when we sit together. I've been experiencing it now for more than, 13 years now, more than 13 years. And it always takes my breath away. It's so extraordinary. And all the more so with you, I will say. Judy saying, sinking so deep. Thanks you for opening the doorway. Yeah, I think we can really thank the divine. That doorway is within each of us. This experience is always available, no matter what's going on in our lives. And if you've been, whether you identify as an empath or not, if you've been in that place where you walk into a space or feel overwhelmed, or you just want to isolate so you can be in a good energy, maybe try some of the things that we've done today. You can experience them again whenever you'd like. This video will be up and available for replay. Okay. I think I'm going to close now. I don't see any other comments coming in, but I will certainly respond to additional comments as they're posted. I'm so grateful for the chance to sit and explore, and it just moves me deeply, for the privilege of witnessing the divine in you, and also for the opportunity to share in this raw expression of how the divine expresses through me. My wish is that you have a more intimate experience with the divine in whatever way is meaningful for you as a result of this, and that perhaps, if you feel so called, that you open up to that raw expression through you and follow that wherever it leads you. Judy saying, sinking in so deep. It's good to be deep with you, Judy, and everyone. Okay, I'm going to close for now. I look forward to being with everyone who is part of the Deep Dive retreat series. We gather tomorrow for, is it Deep Dive 19? My goodness. And all the other circles will have a bonus transmission on Saturday. And I can't remember what's coming up this coming week, but I'm sure next Wednesday we'll be together here, Sanctuary on Tuesday, etc. So grateful for the chance to sit and resonate with you and be as we really are, without any explanation or excuse. What a gift to the freedom that follows. All right, bye for now. Peace. Oh, Sky sharing too. I'm going to put this up here before I close. As always, the container you provide is very safe and inviting to open into the divine frequency and tap into our connection to our higher self, and all is one. Let's leave it with that. What a beautiful reflection, Sky. Thanks for sharing and giving voice. Such an honor to be with you all. Peace. See you again soon.